ABC News Radio.
So we're talking about potentially 3 new species, in particular a small kangaroo-like animal, and only really quite a very small one. So imagine something almost sort of a bit bigger than a house cat. That's one species that we think is almost certainly new. And Tim Flannery was aware potentially of a new species many years ago, but wasn't able to actually source one himself when he was in PNG. And we've also got 2 other really interesting animals. One is a mouse, which almost looks Dumbo-like with these huge ears. And the second one is an antechinus, which many Australians sort of know about as antechinus. It's quite familiar to us. So there's at least 3 animals which look like they're certainly going to be new species. But of course, what we need to do is go back to Papua New Guinea now, catch some of these animals and actually take some measurements and some DNA samples before we can be absolutely sure.
So just to clarify, the evidence of the existence of these new animals is photographic at this stage?
Yeah, it's photographic. So we haven't actually got these animals in the hand yet, but given what we know about what animals should be in that area from textbooks and other previous surveys, they look almost certainly to be new. So we now have to go back there, like I said, and actually catch these animals to confirm that. And
how remote is the area where you've been carrying out this research?
Yeah, this area is incredibly remote. So it took Jim and I 2 days to walk in, and in fact we're the first white people to actually ever go to this site. So it's incredibly remote. Took us about a day walking through a river and then up a very steep mountain for several hours. So it's about as remote as it gets. And that's part of the reason why there's such special fauna there and why these rainforests are so unspoiled.
And what prompted the search in this area in the first instance? Did you have some idea that you were likely to find a new species, or is it really just a bit of a fishing exercise, as it were, until something happens, if it happens?
It's probably something even better than that. The main reason for actually doing this work was to actually, I guess, confirm the wonderful work of the Tenkili Conservation Alliance. So they've been trying to set aside a very large area in the Torricelli Ranges to preserve the fauna of that region or the animals of that region. And so what we wanted to do then, of course, was see, well, okay, if we're going to conserve these rainforests, what's actually living in these rainforests? And our camera traps allow us to do that.
You mentioned the issues of verification about perhaps even getting to the point of having one in the hand. What sort of a time frame are we talking about now that you've actually got some photographic evidence of what might be there?
Yeah, well, what we'd like to do, of course, is get back out to not only the site where we found these animals, but also other sites to see if there's other potential new animals there. But yes, within the next year or so, we'd actually like to set forth on a second expedition, actually catch some of these animals now with the local people and actually formally describe those so we can actually confirm that they are new species. But our aim, of course, is to keep this work going because many of the mountaintops would have been actually surrounded by sea not very long ago at all. And so we might expect the fauna on top of those mountaintops is actually quite unique from one mountaintop to the next.
Was there much local knowledge in terms of mapping out the path as to where you ended up and eventually capturing the evidence of these creatures?
Yeah, huge local knowledge. I mean, the people who live in these areas know the mountains like the back of their hands. They've obviously been, there for many, many years. And without their wonderful assistance, there's no way we could have done what we did and, in fact, continue to do. So, and that's the real success story, I think, with the Tenkili Conservation Alliance, Deakin University and the local people, is that we're all working together for a common goal.
And what are the implications of perhaps discovering a new species of whether it's marsupial or rodent? How significant is that in this day to discover a completely new species in those bigger subgroups?
Yeah, well, to discover new mammals is actually quite rare, of course. I mean, globally speaking, there's many more insects and plants and things than there are mammals. But so to discover a new mammal is quite exciting. But other than just, I guess, the sheer buzz of finding new species, what I think is really important too is what it means to the local people. So again, they've worked very hard to conserve these areas. And it's, I guess, positive affirmation or confirmation for them that what they're doing is actually having a really significant effect in conserving some really special animals.
And I understand as well that you look towards crowdfunding as a source of financing this operation.
Yeah, that's right. And we looked for crowdfunding for 2 reasons. It wasn't just purely to make money, to fund our research, but what we wanted to do was actually involve the public in research. Obviously, on a day-to-day basis, almost we hear doom and gloom stories about the environment, and this was actually something different. So we wanted to show the public that they could get involved in research and help fund fantastic conservation efforts in Papua New Guinea that are actually having real success. So I think it was a wonderful opportunity to communicate science with the public and show them they can be involved in, I guess, making a difference themselves.
abc.net.au/newsradio. Get your news now.